There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special issue of my offerings on my channel. Today, I have a guest that's new to the channel, but this is a longtime friend of mine, David Mack, an Aussie from Down Under. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Charlotte.
We often end up talking because I'm in Canada and David's all the way down in Australia. So we often end up chatting early morning for him, and that today is no exception. I'm going to let David tell you a little bit about himself and about what we're going to be chatting about today. But I just want to say that he has a Rumble channel called Building Digital Freedom, Fighting the Tatorship One Device at a Time. So I think that starts us off in a good way and says a lot about who you are and what you do. Would you tell us, David, a little bit about your background and what you've been working on in the last little while?
Well, thanks, Charlotte. And it's nice to meet your audience. I guess it's like what I've been doing. I've been working in the field of security at the individual, like home user and small business level for the past 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Currently doing work with a bank in the same area, a local bank.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that's most probably the quickest and easiest way to describe what I do for a living.
Right, right. So you've been involved in this whole tech journey from before computers and, the digital virtual reality was a big thing for most people. You've followed that trajectory all the way till now. And you've obviously seen in that time extraordinary changes, but also it sounds like you knew a lot about, based on the history of Silicon Valley, you could see where this was going way back then. And thankfully, there's people like you that are now really supporting the majority of us that are just coming to terms with how much our freedoms are being compromised by this technocracy, which is basically a dictatorship of technology.
Yes, exactly.
And
Yes.
and also like helping us to find ways to basically disentangle ourselves from this and bring the good aspects of the technology along with us into the new earth, but really block the negative power dominant models that this technology has brought to us.
So we'll be talking about the problems, but we'll also be offering solutions. So please hang around. If you feel like, oh, gee, this is getting too deep and dark for me, just hold on. So we will be offering solutions. Some of them we'll be offering during the course of this interview. But yeah, so the biggest problem with technology is like it's just moving us away from nature, away from our freedom. And as Charlotte quite often says during her other interviews, like we're getting to a level of abstraction that's taking us away from the source of what we're working with. And one of the things I'm hoping to do with Ashala in this interview today is is to reduce that abstraction from a technological point of view. So so what we want to do is we want to just like make technology less complicated and safer.
I love it. I love it. Yes. Yeah, like you're talking about both the distraction and the abstraction, right? Like we're just becoming so caught up in this virtual reality, and so much is AI and automation and this and that. So there's a lot of small topics that we're going to touch on today. I want to encourage people, as David said, this is not just about bringing out a whole pile of challenging information. We're going to be offering solutions, and David is also building a locals group where he's going to be providing ongoing support and services to people that are his members. So you can follow him over on Rumble, and I will be making announcements when his locals group is up and running. So you're going to get support from people that have been making this their main mission in life. I'm so grateful for what you're doing, David. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. It's my pleasure.
Do you want to start with a little background on Silicon Valley for those of us that don't know a lot about it?
Yes, and what I'll do is I'll share the screen just so I can get an idea of like where I'm getting some of this information from, so the audience knows I'm not just making it up. Just supply some receipts here. So what I'll do is I'll start sharing the screen now, and then we'll start with. Okay, let me just see if I can find it first. There we go. Let's share the screen. And
what are you showing us first, David?
I'm showing you yes, I'm showing you a Wikipedia page on a venture capital company called Nqutl. It's a privately held, not-for-profit corporation. It's like well, I won't say it on this website on Wikipedia, because as people know, Wikipedia is not always the best source for information. But it's good enough for today. But in a nutshell, Nqutl is a CIA front company.
Okay.
For Silicon Valley. So one of the problems that it's like startups have in Silicon Valley is when they're looking to become the next Facebook or Apple or Google or whatever, you need what's called a lot of runway as far as funding is concerned to corner the market for your particular startup. So that means you've got to run it sometimes billions of dollars of a loss on an annual basis for sometimes up to a decade or more before the company will start to turn over a profit.
Okay.
Okay, and Nqutl is pretty much the biggest, if not one of the biggest, venture capital firms in Silicon Valley. So let's just say me and you are starting a startup called Building Digital Freedom, and we need some money to get it up and running. We contact these guys, and these guys give us some money to get it up and running. And that's
I'm venturing a guess that they wouldn't, but
well, they would, Charlotte, they definitely would, but it would come with a big string attached.
Okay.
Okay, and because they're a CIA front company, what they will want from us is like, well, here's your money, but all you have to do for us is just put a backdoor in the project that you're working on, so our agents can come through and spy on your customers whenever we want.
Okay. And who has made these agreements with Nqutl?
Well, pretty much every company in Silicon Valley is like that. So that's why a lot of people don't trust the technology that's coming out of Silicon Valley because of this issue.
Okay.
It's very hard to get to be big enough to be seen by the general population globally on your own without funding from a company like this.
Okay.
Okay, and once again, once you do accept the funding, it's like making a deal with the devil, and it's like in that deal, it's like, yeah, put a back door in, let us get in whenever we want, and that's one of the biggest problems with technology from a security point of view. Is like it's just so rampant. It's really hard for me to keep my customers safe.
Yes. Yeah. Now tell me a little bit about that when you're talking about risks. And you were mentioning just before we got on the interview with particularly Windows and Android. Do you want to speak a little bit more about that?
Well, what I might do, Charlotte, is I might just back up a bit, and I'll talk about the central bank digital currencies. I don't know if you can see that on the screen now, but most of the audience is well aware of what's going on with this. That is an upcoming digital currency that's programmable, which means if governments don't like what the citizens are doing, they can program the money to do certain things. So, for example, in China, they already have this, and if you hang around the wrong people, you get a low credit score. If you walk across the road and if you jaywalk across the road, by the time you come back home, the fine for the jaywalking is already taken out of your bank account. There's all sorts of things they can do that greatly reduces your freedom and privacy.
Can you make that bigger? Expand that window?
Yeah. How's that?
Tiny one? Yeah, just the little one in the corner there. Okay. Yeah. So this is an advertisement for the acceptance of the digital.
Oh no, this is a Wikipedia page on the central
Oh,
bank.
right. Okay. Got it. Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Once again, it's like not the best source.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm also getting sidetracked by something here, which we might talk about in another interview where they're talking about not to be confused with a stable coin, but that's one of the things that that they're trying to wipe out in the cryptocurrency market. But that's something we might talk about another time.
Okay.
Today we'll just concentrate on privacy and freedom. Maybe we'll talk about the financial stuff in another interview.
That's good.
Right. Now I'm going to get on to today mostly we're going to concentrate on Windows computers and Apple computers. We will talk a little bit about mobile, but that's I think we've got another expert in that area that you might be getting on later, so maybe I'll leave that for him to discuss.
Yeah.
I'll concentrate on the operating system stuff for today, but there are solutions in the mobile area that it's like we'll talk about in the future, or Ashala's guess we'll talk about in the future.
Totally.
But today what I want to talk about is, let me just go back to this window here. I don't know if you can see that very well.
Yep.
But that's a screenshot of a Windows 11 computer.
Okay.
I might just make it a bit bigger so people can read the writing a bit better. But this is on a laptop, but this same thing shows up in the power settings in Windows 11 on desktop computers as well. And it's like underneath the percentage here, we're seeing a couple of warning messages. One is saying sleep is set to never, which uses more power and results in higher carbon emissions. And the second one says the screen is set to never turn off, which uses more power and results in higher carbon emissions. So this is a new thing in Windows 11 that's only come out in the last couple of months. This type of monitoring can be easily tied to a central bank digital currency that has a carbon credit system applied to it. So let's just say you like to have your screen nice and bright on your laptop, and you never like to have your screen turned off. Then this can be tied to a CBDC, which will allow them to take carbon credits out of your bank account for you supposedly abusing how you use your computer. Okay. This can also be used for other things that are a bit more nefarious, like it's like what websites you can visit. That can be locked down. All of that can be locked down with a special chip that Windows 11 makes it compulsory to have before you can use Windows 11. That's called the Trusted Platform Module. And it's a separate chip that has faced a lot of resistance. I'll just change slides to another Wikipedia page on this, but
sure.
Yeah, it's like
slide down. We can't read the top of that one.
Yep, is that better?
No, all the way. Keep going.
Well, I need to concentrate. Well, I'll go up, but I want to go back there. Maybe
minimize it. Oh, I see. I see. Okay.
I want to concentrate on because there's a lot here, but I just want to get to the bullet points of why this is. So it's called the Trusted Computing Platform or Trusted Platform Module. And what it is a separate security chip on your computer. It can keep you safe, and it does keep you safe by locking out all this nasty stuff that could be trying to hack into your computer and steal your personal information. But it can also do the reverse. Okay, it can lock you in. Okay, and make it hard for you to get out. By locking you in, I mean it can. Well, on this page here, they're talking about some of the concerns include the abuse of remote validation of software. Okay, and that's where the manufacturer and not the user who owns the computer system decides what software is allowed to run on your computer. Okay, so let's just say building digital freedom does that mean you have made some software and you want to install it on Windows 11 computers around the world with a TPM module that could be blocked from running. So that can, it's like not only it's like impinging our privacy, but also our freedom on being able to just like choose how we want to run our computer.
Exactly, and this gets into censorship, right? This is all, yeah.
And we'll be talking about well, one of the solutions to that is like running a Linux operating system. There's one which I don't have like a screenshot for right now. Well, actually, I might just quickly Google it while we're here.
So
Uh,
Linux is a really big solution, is it not? I've heard
it,
a bit about it. Would you tell us a bit more about it?
yes, because that's really important for the audience to know. It's like so because um, let me just back up and explain what the difference is between open source and closed source software is. So
Okay.
open source software is built by a community of volunteers. So uh, back when me and you were a lot younger, it's like all the guys in our neighborhood would get together and come over to their friend's garage and hot up their cars. Okay. And they'd all work together on that for free because it was fun. And they were building something, that was interesting to them. Now, a lot of people around the world, it's like especially men, I suppose, but there are a lot of women involved in this area, um, are building computers instead of cars. And in order for that to work, it has to have a special license, okay, called an open source license that allows anyone to come in and see what the code is under the hood and change it. Okay, and
Yeah.
what's good about that, as far as a security perspective is concerned, or privacy perspective, anyone who tries to make anything that's going to impinge on people's security or privacy is going to be seen by everyone else that's working on the same project. So,
Oh,
so it
nice,
makes it a
nice.
lot harder to bring in nasty stuff that might not necessarily be good for your digital freedom. So that's
Okay.
why I recommend Linux. There is this operating system that I'm using right now, actually during this Zoom call, and it's called Zorin OS. Okay, and it's very user friendly, and it's a lot prettier than most um, Linux operating systems. And
Can I ask you, David, is Zorian part of Linux, or is it a separate one? It's a
oh,
different one.
yeah, this is where Linux gets confusing. Thank you very much for asking that question because that's another important one. One of the downsides of Linux is like how much choices you have.
Okay.
Okay, so there's literally dozens upon dozens of different operating systems you can choose from. They all have different aims and different niches. And yeah, the reason why I'm like discussing Zorin today is like, and I don't have an affiliation with them at all, except for the fact that I just use it personally. Is very user friendly. Okay, it's the sort of thing. Um, well, it's like Steve Jobs when he was alive. He's just like he had a reputation for making stuff very user friendly at Apple. And when the engineers used to come into his office and show him the latest projects that he's got them working on, he would get very angry if what they were showing him couldn't pass this very simple test he had. And this simple test was, can my 3-year-old daughter use this and can my 80-year-old grandmother use it? Because if they can't use it, then he would consider it useless and he'd throw the device at the wall at them or whatever. They're creating
Yeah.
these tears and apples. Yeah, and he
I
was
don't
quite
know. Some of these 3-year-olds are pretty pretty tech savvy nowadays. Even
there's a
some
lot
of
to
the
do with Steve
80-year-old
Jobs.
grandmas are too, right?
Yeah. And
But
that's
yeah, I
the
get your point. It's like making it simple and
accessible.
user friendly.
Yes, and Zorin OS is quite good. Um, and yeah,
Awesome. Okay. Okay, let's back up a little bit. I just want to recap what we were saying then. So open source is what we're wanting so that
preferable. Yes,
preferable, and Linux is a main provider of that, and under Linux there's literally a choice of dozens of operating systems, and
yeah,
this Zorian is one of them.
yeah. This is the one I reckon the most. And I do have like customers that are elderly that are using it right now, and they never call me. Okay, so that's like a pretty good test. Okay, so
Awesome.
if you put one of your your family members or one of your friends on it and you're using it yourself, um, I'd be really surprised if you get many calls saying, "Well, gee, how do I do this? How do I do that? I used to be able to do that on my Windows computer, or I used to be able to do it on my Mac, but I can't do it on this." You're not going to get many calls like that with Soren.
Okay, great. Great. So let's go back and talk a little bit about Windows
Yeah.
and Mac, obviously, and
But
Android.
before we move on to that, it's like this operating system doesn't need to. work with a trusted trusted platform module that you have on desktop computers that usually run Windows. Okay. Now, the only downside with Zorin, I don't think you can run it on the latest Macs, because Macs use a different processor. They use an ARM processor instead of an Intel processor. So this is more for people that are trying to get away from Windows.
Okay. Now, is
Okay.
that true of all Linux or just this particular Zorin one?
Oh, well, most of them, yeah. Yeah.
Most of the Linux are not compatible with Mac.
Well, all of them, sorry, all of the Linux. Yes, thanks for clarifying that. Yes.
Okay.
But you can't run, not on the new ones. On the older Macs, you can, that have the Intel chips, but the newer Macs are running a beefed up iPhone type chip, which is an ARM processor instead of a Intel processor.
Okay.
And that's why you can't run, well, not easily. Some people are hacking it and be able to get get it working, but it's not at a point where you can tell someone that's not that computer savvy there. You can just install it just like you would install Windows or Mac OS.
Great. Okay. So if we are running Windows right now, Linux is a great option, and this Zorin is a really user-friendly version.
Yeah, that's the one I recommend the most. And
Great.
also, if you're worried about it's like it taking over your computer, you can set it up to dual boot. Okay, so when your computer starts up, you have an option to go straight into Zorin or straight into your Windows. So you can try it. So you can dip your toes in the water and try it for a while. And if you don't like it, you can just go back to Windows and use that. And that's something that I'll be talking about in my locals committee when I get that up and running. I'll be showing people how to do this, and also those people that want to stick with Windows and just feel they can't make the leap yet, how to keep their Windows computers safer.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Yes. And can you just clarify what's different about Mac and Windows based on these discussions of privacy and
Okay. Well, unfortunately, very similar as far as this trusted platform module that I'm talking about. So, Windows computers also run AMD processors, and they have a similar type of system on a chip called an AMD platform security processor. It's pretty much the same as the Windows platform module, Windows trusted platform module. It's like the Android phones also have a co-processor, which is part of the CPU, which is it's like has a couple of processors that are tied to the same sort of process of locking the computer down, or locking the device down and keeping it safe. And with iOS, they have where are we? I can't see the exact thing that I wanted to see here, but they have something called another chip called a secure enclave. Okay, and that's Apple's version of the trusted platform module, and that's in all the iPhones and all the Macs.
Okay.
All right, but that being said, one of the things I'd like to see happening in the tech community going forward, which is starting to happen a little bit already. So once again, there is a bit of good news for the audience. It's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
So if you're on once again, just to quickly recap, if you're on a Windows computer, you can escape using Linux. On Macs, it's a bit harder, but that might change in the future. But one of the problems is
sorry, I just want to ask you too, when we say escape, what we're referring to is moving towards privacy, harm reduction, and reducing censorship, right?
Yeah, what we want to do is we want to bring your computer or your phone back under your control, and not under the control of corporations and governments.
Basically, yes. Got it.
Yeah. And this comes back down to chip design. As we've been seeing, a lot of the chips out there are very it's like moving in a direction that's not very safe for us.
Mhm.
It's good for corporations and governments, obviously, but not great for us.
Mhm.
Now, one of the things I'd like to see happening is like more open source chips being created. There's pretty much almost none of them at the moment, but it is possible. So with enough funding, it's like you can build your own chips. Obviously, it would cost quite a lot of money, but if it's crowdfunded, it is possible. With crowdfunding, it's like it raises enough funds. And there's an open source instruction set, which computer chips can use that doesn't have any of the back doors in it that we're seeing with the other chips.
Okay, so basically, if you have a chip that's created in that way, there's no way to hack into it, or
Well, once again, going back to open source and closed source software, because this architecture for computer chips is open source. People can see where it's been taken and also change the code of it themselves if they want to.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just say Building Digital Freedom decided to start making a chip. That would be a long way off, of course, but let's just say we did. We could use this instruction set. We could take our funding to what's called a, if I remember correctly, digital foundries. So there's special foundries that build computer chips. We can say, this is our design. This is what we want. Make us like 20,000 of these chips, and they'll build them to our specifications.
Okay.
All right.
So, all right. So we're getting around censorship, privacy, and do you want to touch in on CBDCs briefly again before we head into talking about the internet?
Yes. Well, this is something that would be better for a another discussion, but I'll just try and touch on it very, very briefly and quickly. When I was looking at CBDCs before, let's just go back to that tab there. Can you see that okay, Charlotte?
Yeah. Central bank digital currency.
And underneath here, it says not to be confused with stablecoin. That's a very important point. Okay, so let's just say I'm going to see a customer tomorrow and CBDC is already out in Australia, or it could be in Canada and I could be visiting a customer over there. Doesn't matter where in the world it is. The CBDCs in that country, and I'm looking to get paid for my work today. If stable coins are still around and still a big thing, then I can say to that customer, look, I don't want to be tracked. I don't want my privacy encroached on. I don't want to be told how to spend my money and risk having my money spent in a way for me that I don't want it spent. Just pay me a stable coin instead of a CBDC. And this is very dangerous for central bank digital currencies because a stable coin quite often is a coin that's backed by an asset like a Canadian dollar or a US dollar, or an Australian dollar or a British pound, for example. Okay, and I could just like to say, pay me that stable coin, and now I'm outside of that CBDC system.
Okay. Now, are a lot of the crypto coins considered stable coins, or no, they're not?
No, they're not. It's like a stable coin is a special type of cryptocurrency, and there's lots of different types. But this is a particular type of coin that's pretty much a crypto equivalent of your local currency.
Okay.
Okay, but without the CBDC restrictions that could possibly be on it in the future.
So in the digital format in the future, it is possible that we could have 3 distinct versions to choose from. We could be looking at central bank digital currencies that they may try to run nationwide in different areas in different countries.
Well, what it does,
and we could also have stablecoin alternative to choose from, and then in a third bracket we could have different versions of bitcoins and different versions of cryptocurrency, so we could be trading for goods and services in any one of those 3 digital currency models. Is that right?
That's very close to what I'm trying to say, but it's like the name stable coin, it's called stable for a reason, and the reason why it's called a stable coin is it's tied to a less volatile asset. Okay, so the amount of percentages that a Canadian dollar or a British pound or a US dollar, for example, would swing in the course of a day would be quite small. Okay, quite often less than 1%. Whereas with cryptocurrencies, the huge advantage and disadvantage with them is like a cryptocurrency can swing 5, 10, sometimes even 20% in one day. So there could be 20% gain or 20% loss.
Right.
Okay, and that's when it comes to investing. People, what they will do is they'll take the profit out of their cryptocurrency, they'll throw it in a stable coin, and then when they're ready to like buy something that's running at a big loss that I think is going to like have a good future, they'll like use that stable coin to buy that crypto. Okay, so it helps you it helps protect you from the fluctuations in the cryptocurrency market. Makes it safer to
Well,
trade.
and it is a stable trading coin, like trading for goods and services, because if we exchange that coin for goods and services today, it's probably still going to be the same value tomorrow.
That's right. And yes, and why the CBDCs don't like the stable coins. The stable coin is pretty much almost the same thing as a CBDC, minus the encroachment on your digital liberties. Okay, so they don't like it. There's been a lot of controversy with some stable coins being hacked. Some very mysterious deaths of some stablecoin founders. It's like making reference to intelligence agencies before they died, coming to get them, and all this sort of thing. So the powers that be are fighting very hard, just like make sure stablecoin is not a thing. There's still a few left, but they're the ones that are mostly under their control. Like Tether, for example, is like a favorite of BlackRock and Vanguard Capital. They use it a lot for buying real estate.
So you're saying there aren't very many stable coins left?
That's right, yes.
So this isn't really going to be a viable option for us down the road.
Well,
then.
it still can be in the future. There's still enough of them left around, but they'd like to wipe them out completely if they can, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Because a central bank digital currency can't really exist with a stable coin. It's like being available as an option.
Okay.
Because when I come to pay you for a reading next time, you could say to me, look, David, I don't want to get paid in the Canadian central bank digital currency because it's like I want to be able to like spend my money how I want. Just give me a Canadian stable coin instead, and it's going to have the same value as that CBDC anyway. So I'm not losing any money, but I'm gaining all this freedom.
That could be, to keep those stable coins strong could be something to ward off this CBDCs, and also it could be something that's transitional as we look at other exchange models down the road.
And that's something we might do a whole different program on. But one of the things to talk about is bartering, and that's very important.
Yeah, and I've got a whole series on new economy. So we'll touch base later on down the road around that. I just want to go now into, can we go into the internet, the future of the internet? Because this is obviously an area where it's for all of us so critical, and it seems a little bit unstable sometimes, and I'm kind of concerned about it. So can you let us know where we can go with that? What's on the horizon?
Okay, and yes, you have another guest that you've spoken to me about. He's most probably going to go into this in a lot more detail than what I am, but I'll give some very broad brush strokes, which will most probably be more than likely along the same lines of what he's going to be talking about.
Okay.
But once again, let's just start with a problem with the internet first, and then possible solutions.
Okay.
So the first thing we need to know about the internet is like it's like semi-centralized. It's not completely centralized, but it is centralized enough that it's under complete corporate control. And it's like there's something called the internet backbone, and the internet backbone is like the if you can think of internet traffic like pipes, these are like the pipes that feed a city. Okay, so those pipes are going to be very big and going to have a lot of data flowing through them. and going to need a lot of very expensive infrastructure to be able to like route that data to those cities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, um, and if the internet backbone goes down, then the whole internet goes down.
Yeah.
Okay, and the internet backbone is made up of something called tier one networks. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and these tier one networks are pretty much like when you're sending data around the world, like we are with this Zoom call, for example, it's going to go through a tier one network, and well, it's going to like leave our home, go to our ISP, and then go to what's called a point of presence. And then it's going to go to a tier two network, which is most probably also owned by our same ISP. And then that tier two network is going to move it to a tier one network. And if that tier one network ever goes down or it gets censored, then we can't have this same conversation that we're talking about now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the tier one network pretty much makes the internet backbone. It's like and it is like reasonably centralized because of that. There's a whole bunch of tier one networks. There's a whole bunch of companies and nations involved, but not many. Okay, as you can see here, these are the main ones here. We can only see what the United States, Germany,
yeah,
Holland, Japan, France, Hong Kong, India, Italy, Sweden, Spain. So I'm looking at 5 or 6 different countries here that are pretty much controlling the internet traffic globally. So if those countries decide to get together and it's like and decide to start censoring traffic, they can do that quite easily.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so yeah, so the solution to that, I don't have any slides for this right now. I was going to put this video on, but it's not really directly relating to our discussion. But in a nutshell, there's a show called Silicon Valley, and it's like this comedy TV show on HBO, and they talk about towards the end of the series, they talk about creating a cryptocurrency called PiperNet. Okay, and what it does, it allows anyone to turn their phone into part of a mesh network, which is similar to the internet backbone, but much more decentralized, so almost completely decentralized.
Mm-hmm.
So looking around with your phone at a concert venue, for example, this is an example where it's really usually hard to get watch a YouTube video if you're at a sports game or at a festival or something like that. It's pretty hard. It's like because of the amount of traffic that's clogging up the mobile phone towers, it's an issue. And also we've got the issue of freedom of the internet backbone. It's like centralizing traffic as well. So that's this what they're talking about in this comedy show is something that's becoming reality now. It's called a mesh network. It allows your spare Wi-Fi capacity on your phone to be used as part of a network. So let's just say me and you are both at a sporting game. You're at one end of the arena and I'm at the other end. It's like I send you a message. It goes through. It leaves the Wi-Fi on my phone, and it passes through in a secure and private way through all the other phones that are between me and you in the sports arena, and then you finally get the message.
You're kidding. That is so cool.
And that could also happen in a because obviously the Wi-Fi range of your phone wouldn't be that great, so it'd only be good in those sort of situations where there's a big crowd of people. But that can also be set up to work from people's homes. Their home Wi-Fi network could work the same way.
Mm-hmm.
It could also be people volunteering, start putting big Wi-Fi antennas and receivers on their own properties, just like to fill the gaps where there's not many people around. So like farming communities and stuff like that. And the whole idea of a mesh network, it's like it can reduce the need for a centralized internet backbone, which means people have the power to it's like bypass censorship and stuff like that a
Okay,
lot more easily.
so let me get this right. It will work among the people who are part of that
Yeah.
group, but it won't work outside of that, or it will work.
Well, that's right. It's like it'll work amongst people that are participating in that mesh network. So what they did in this TV show, they created a cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Okay, and that cryptocurrency was called PiperNet, and the way it worked was you gave up some of your free Wi-Fi capacity, but you got paid for doing that. Okay, and if you wanted to just like use so you'd be paying and getting paid at the same time in this PiperNet token, cryptocurrency token.
Okay, interesting.
Okay,
You're
yeah,
basically you're getting paid to give up some of the
we'll
space
give
on
it.
your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also happening with storage in the cryptocurrency community as well. So there are tokens where you use like your spare capacity on your phone or your computer. It's like rent that out, for lack of a better word, to other people.
Okay.
And that allows you to decentralize it's like cloud storage as well. So you won't need iCloud. It's like the community becomes iCloud.
Okay. Now, is that safe though?
Um, Yes, it is reasonably safe. You can never say anything's 100% safe with technology. That's one of the downsides of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you could pretty say it's pretty much safe. Yeah.
So let's say I had storage on my phone and I was renting that out. I wouldn't be able to see anything that was being stored there.
Right. Okay. So if I had like some trademark secrets for building digital freedom and we had an argument and you weren't part of the team anymore, you wouldn't be able to see any of the stuff that I might have stored on your phone that I'm renting from your phone
Oh,
space.
interesting.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, and also there's personal information that you might only want for your close family and friends, and you don't want that being seen by other people. So that wouldn't be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So so that's another thing that's interesting about cryptocurrency that's been spoken on before. Another it's like interviews that's been done on this channel
Mm-hmm.
is how cryptocurrency has the ability to bypass a lot of the censorship and privacy issues that we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So to wrap this up, in terms of solutions, what I'm hearing is that we have these operating systems that are open source, and they are creating an alternative to being sort of locked in with Windows and Android.
And as well.
And what? Sorry?
And Apple as well.
And Apple as well. And then as in terms of the CBDCs, we're looking at things like stable coins, obviously still other cryptocurrencies as transitional trading currencies to sort of avoid or step out of that CBDC loop. And then finally, when we're talking about internet, we are looking at these mesh networks where there's going to be the possibility of, when you said that, when you're talking about, that the message could go from phone to phone to phone across the stadium, I just thought to myself, that just makes so much sense. Like, it's always felt so ridiculous to me that we're sending a message, like, I don't know, over to like France or like somewhere across the ocean, and then it's coming like all the way back, and then it's going to my next door neighbor. Like, that just seems ridiculous to me. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm still pretty simple-minded with a lot of this stuff, but it makes a lot more sense that we would concentrate on making these connections and sharing, like you say, a mesh network in smaller areas. And to me, that just creates, I mean, it's a lot more about building relationships of trust within these communities as well, right? And like you say, open source means that everyone can see what everyone else is doing. So the likelihood of shady activity happening is much
Yeah.
less.
Well, that's the beauty of open source. Everyone can like when you're looking at a Windows computer or an Apple computer or an Android phone,
Yeah.
um, it's like um, it's like all the software that and the operating system is closed source, it's proprietary, which
Mhm.
means it's locked down and you can't pull the code up. You can't get in and see what the code is trying to do.
Right.
Okay? That's probably the easiest way to describe it.
Mhm.
Whereas with open source, you can actually get under the hood and see how the code was put together, and then you can see what they were trying to do with that code.
Okay.
So that's the big thing about open source. You can see what the programmers and the software developers are trying to do. They can't hide anything because anyone in the world can get under the hood, and if they have the knowledge, they can see what's going on with it. Um, but I guess in a nutshell, what we're talking about today, there are possible solutions in the future. Some of them ready to go right now, like the Zorin operating system for Windows
Mhm.
people. What I would say to the audience, like on a sliding scale of security, Windows computers are definitely the least secure. They
Okay.
need antivirus and anti-malware, good quality antivirus and anti-malware, in order to lock them down and keep them reasonably safe.
Yeah.
Uh, um, Apple computers, it's like a safer,
Mhm.
uh, but they do have a problem with Apple trying to snoop on people. So there was a big controversy a couple of years ago where Apple was snooping on people's storage.
Mm.
So looking at what was called the metadata, okay,
Mm.
and sending that information back to Apple's headquarters. That metadata is like information about what files you have on your device and what type of files.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so let's just say
So
you had
yeah.
a photo on your phone called wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
Okay, they'd know that you had it's like a file, a picture on your phone with that title. Um,
Mhm.
and also they had an artificial intelligence algorithm that they reckon would do it in a way that's doesn't invade your privacy, but I don't fully believe that. Where they wanted to look for child pornography
Mhm.
and warn local law enforcement if you had anything like that on your phone, which is fine. But what's bad about that is, and what's important for the audience to understand is like they're treating everyone as a criminal before.
Well, and we've seen what happens with censorship in the last 3 years, where, like we
Yep.
can be censored on so many of these platforms. And those of us that are trying to promote freedom, that are actually trying to protect children and their rights and so on, we're being censored.
Yeah.
So it can go any which way, right?
Right.
Would
So
you would you open us back up on the screen there, David, or stop screen
yeah.
sharing? Thank you. Great.
Yes, but the biggest problem with what Apple were doing was like the whole point of a justice system is like it's innocent until proven guilty, not the
Mhm.
other way around. So the whole idea of that system was everyone was considered to be guilty of child pornography until it's like Apple deemed that they were proved innocent of
Wow.
it. So that's like illegal search and seizure. Okay, so let's just say um, I think you're growing illegal drugs in your property. Um, but I introduced a law that means that I can search every property in Canada,
Mhm.
um, and everyone in Canada has to prove they're not growing illegal drugs in the property that way. That's not right. So that's why Apple did drop that. So hopefully they try and bring it back. But that's one of the reasons why we can't trust them. But
Mhm.
apart from that, Macs are a lot less prone to get viruses and malware than
Mhm.
what Windows computers are. And then there's Zorin, that operating system I was talking about before. That's the safest out of the three,
Okay.
as far as being resistant to viruses and malware, and also spying and stuff like that. Um,
Great. Thank you so much, David. Oh my gosh, what a grand tour to start us off here. So we've got an intention to keep doing these chats. You know that I'm bringing on a couple of other fellas that are going to be talking about related stuff in the next month or so. And at some point, I'd love to get the three of you talking together. And you're also looking at obviously starting up regular offerings on your Rumble channel, which I will just repeat the name of it. I love it. Building Digital Freedom, Fighting the Tatorship, One Device at a Time. So we really look forward to those programs that you're going to be running over on Rumble, and also to your locals group. David, thank you very much for sharing your perspective and wisdom with us today. And I look forward to learning more. And, you know, it's just so hopeful to see that there are alternatives, even though it feels like it's so out of our scope. And me, for sure, I'm like such a non-tech person I've always been. I can't even believe that I'm wrapping my head around these concepts. But you've really helped me to understand and to realize that, you know, there's ways that we can work with technology in a much more ethical, responsible way. And I look forward to visioning more of that with you in the future.
Thank you, Charlotte. And yes, I'll let the audience know as soon as my locals group is up and running.
Awesome.
I'm currently looking at working with a bank to it's like build some sort of what's the word? Some standard operating procedures and stuff that I'll also share with the community once it's done. So my locals is not up and running yet, so don't go rushing over there just yet. But this interview will be on my channel. There's also another rare video on there about the history of Burning Man. We saw the Burning Man in the news recently, like a few weeks ago. There's this guy who's a Silicon Valley pioneer called Steve Outram. He's been following Burning Man almost since its inception. And that gives you an interesting history behind Silicon Valley as well. So there is something on my channel already.
Great. Over there and watch that. Yeah.